recorded. Yeah. How you been, Josh?
Good.
Good. Yeah. So let's see here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to our next one. So last week we talked about the karma. Let's see here. Let me share the screen. Okay. Let me move it up here. It's too small, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me move further. Samsara. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can sit this side. Oh, okay. Yeah. Is it enough? Is it enough for you to read it? So, okay. So we are familiar with the samsara and the cycle of the birth, right? Yeah. So for us it's no problem, but for other people, it's not easy for them to understand and to accept, right? Because in the West, most of the time they say go up forever, go down forever. In the Buddhist view, is everything go the cycle. Everything we see in the cycle. Yeah. All right. Let's start with Sam. Can you read next, please? The Buddha. The Buddha.
The Buddha's teaching of Anatman, non-self, rejects any notion of an intrinsic, unchanging entity at the core of a person. What then did he regard as a human being? Seeking to see all reality as a process, the Buddha analyzed a person as a collection of 5 components, skandhas. The physical body, rupa, which is made of a combination of the 4 elements, earth, water, fire, air. Feelings, vedana, which arise from sensory contact in the horse picture.
Yeah, here. Yeah.
Can you move it so the pictures aren't in front
Oh,
of
okay.
them? Form of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or thought. Perceptions, samjna, which attach the categories good, evil, or neutral to these sensory inputs. Habitual mental dispositions, samskaras, which connect karma-producing will to mental action. And consciousness, vijnana, which arises when mind and body come into contact with the external world.
Yeah, thank you. Summarize, please.
It's saying that the Buddha recognized that there's no such thing as like, you know, in other religions like Christianity or even in Hinduism, they imagine a soul as kind of like in like a movie. It's like a guy that's like you but transparent. That's like always you. That's your true self in those religions is your soul, and it's always unchanging. But the Buddha was like, no, there's no such thing. But obviously we do exist, but he said that our existence is made of a smaller parts instead of one single thing. And the smaller parts he picked out is he's like, you got your body, you got your senses, and you got your perceptions and your habits and feelings. And that's what we are, is skandhas, just like a bundle of stuff, basically.
Yeah. But again, it's pure hard concept, right? To accept, right? So
it's always changing too.
But so who are we then? If there's no real self, so who are we?
Well,
that's a big question. That's a big question.
There are people that spend lifetimes dedicated to that question only.
A big question. Here in the Theravada traditions, yes, there's no self at all, because based upon these five skandhas, the form, the physical body, the feeling, perception of thinking, the formation, that has been here, perception of thinking, or good, bad, and habitual mental disposition. That means, let's say, habitual thinking. Let's say when we wake up early in the morning, we like to drink tea, coffee, and so forth. We get that type of habitual pattern. And the last one is consciousness. Is in Mahayana Buddhist. I think we discussed before. 8 levels of consciousness, not six. So, but in Mahayana tradition, it said that yes, besides we don't have that kind of non-self, but we have the pure nature, Buddha nature. That our essential beings there. Yeah, so in Zen tradition, we want to activate, we want to live with that kind of essential awakening nature, what we call Buddha nature. That's a real one in Mahayana tradition. Yeah, we talk about, let's say when we drink water, right? The first instant we touch with the water, we could feel that, we could have that kind of first-hand experience, right? That's the what they call the intuition. But when we analyze, oh, this is sweet water, this is hot water, and so forth, it become analytical thinking, and this is not that's what here is not talk about. Yeah, but our essential awakened nature is that the first instant, you can say in the term intuition, that go beyond expression, they go beyond thinking. That's what in Mahayana Buddhist view, that's the real nature of them, that pure nature of them. Yeah, right. And again, in our daily life, it's not easy. It's not easy to recognize until we sit down and do meditation. We can see everything is changing. Movement by movement, right? Our skin, right? Our cell, and our thinking too. But of course, for the common people, it's not easy to accept. So again, how could you explain to common people? As the Buddhist view, is just no cell here. Not easy. But why? Why we have this type of understanding? Why is that? Why do we need to have this type of understanding, the non-self?
Because that is the view, part of the right view is to understand the applications of non-self dependent origination. If you have that piece correct, it's your ignorance. It's your ignorance believing in the self and protecting this thing that is yourself that throws you off of right view that creates more.
Yeah, I remember, I think I told you before, one day I went to airport, and so there's, in the airport you have the bench, right? You can sit down. So when I approached to that area, the waiting area, so there's one old lady. She, the cart for the luggage, right? So when I approached to that bench, because she sat at the front, so she said, "Oh, this is my cart. Don't touch it." I mean that with that type of attachment, that's just bring a lot of suffering for ourselves. That's important. So the Buddha teaching help us to recognize what is real, what is non-real, right? So that we let go of the non-real one, so that we can make peace of ourselves. Otherwise, this is a lot of suffering. So especially when someone hit our car, right, from the back, if we can let go, if it's not much, we can let go. Otherwise, it's a big deal, right?
You have a Bentley.
Yeah, it so depends on situation. But if we understand this type of non-self, it's much easier for us to let go of things. Otherwise, not easy, not easy in our daily life. Okay, so let's see here. Ben, can you read, please?
Yeah, the spiritual purpose of breaking down any apparently unchanging locus of individuality is to demonstrate that there is no thing to be attached to or to direct one's desire towards. Attached to things, addicted to themselves, and in denial about their mortality, human beings misconstrue reality and bind themselves to suffering and inevitably rebirth in samsara. They, how do you say that? And doctrine presented Buddhist exponents with the perpetual problem of explaining moral casualty. How can the doctrine of karma, with its emphasis on moral retribution, operate without the mechanism of a metaphysical soul which connects the doer to moral results?
It's pure long one.
That's a
Understand
deep
that.
one.
Mhm.
It's saying if there is no soul, then what do you attach karma to? What is
Mhm.
how do you quantify the karma if there is nothing to bind it to? This is what I'm seeing.
Yeah. And also you see that in everyday life, right? Problem come from the ego, right? Someone says something, if we attach ourselves so much, we may be angry. If someone just say something, we may feel that offended. Right? That's why it's like you, let's say you chop up some basket or something personal, right? If they don't like, they may say something about you, right? In negative way, you be angry, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't pay attention, no big deal.
I remember as a child, because my father was in the Air Force, we moved from England to Southern California, and just the culture was different. I couldn't read at a first grade level, and so the kids would make fun of me, and so I just would get so angry because I was like, they're so different than me, and or I'm so different than them, and it took many years to realize that we have things in common.
Yeah. As soon as we let go of our ego, right? It's much easier for us to deal with other people. Otherwise, like at the tradition, if some customer call and somehow they cancel, right? You get mad. But if you accept that, it's happened before a lot, right? Yeah. If we don't attach to the ego, much easier for us to move on to the day. Yes, so somehow it's easy for us to forgive, to let go of some bad comment from the one that that come from the top, our top, like supervisor, manager, and so forth. But not easy to forgive someone that below our authorities, right? You know why? You understand that?
No, it seems like because you would want to defend yourself, it's easy that that person's always criticizing you and trying to control you or whatever, so it's pretty easy to write off that person. But when there's someone that you would perceive as less than, that has criticism of you, then all of a sudden your ego is like, wait, you're not.
Early texts show that this question was clearly posed to the Buddha. If there is no soul, how can karmic fruits of any good or evil act pass into the future of this life or into an individual's later incarnation? The standard Buddhist response is that karma endures in habitual mental energy, samskara, which is impressed in the fifth skandha consciousness. Although always evolving and thus impermanent, consciousness endures in this life and subsequently leaves the body at death, passing on to be reincarnated in the next life form.
Mhm. Mm.
So it's, I think, trying to say that, you know, the karma generated in this life is real from our experience, and that pattern gets carried on to the next vehicle, the next form.
No, we won't be the same, but we carry on. I have two partners in the past life, and whichever thing we have now, it would move on to the next one. And I think we talk more, right? Let's say very consciousness.
I kind of think about it as like throwing sugar into a stream. Like later on, it will still be a bit sweet.
Yeah. Let me pull out this one here. You're not familiar with the eye contrasts, right? You don't know about that.
The eight consciousness. And I think it's more of a Mahayana concept.
Yes.
So really, I don't want to say, I guess acknowledge it.
Yeah. But here the first five, six contrasts are the sight, the hearing, the touch, the smell, the taste, right? And that's five, the first five, and actually the sixth one is the control everything here. What we hear, what we see, and so forth. Let me get another one. So I drop. Okay, here. It's much easier for you to see here. So the first five, and this is the contrast. The sixth one is the connective one. It's like the owner of the house. When you open the door, you see out there. When you open the eyes, you see something. When you pay attention on the ear, you hear something else, right? And whichever information like this, like it will be processed in the seven here. And whichever thing we attach here, we store in the eight contrasts here. That's the storage contrast. That whichever thing we see, we hear, we store there. So that's why when we move to the next slide, those have energy move on with us. So this one here. So the seven in my tradition, the seven one is the contrast is attached to the cell, the grasping, the attraction, the aversion. So whichever thing we see, we like, we store in the eye consciousness. Whichever thing even we don't like, we store inside there. Yeah, and Stephen, you follow, right? We talk about that. This is a lot of that, right? Yeah. And it is similar as in psychology. You see that in psychology, the input here, like the input information out there, it will be filtered out by our seeing, hearing, feeling, and so forth, right? And if we like, we put in the knowledge bank here. It is in psychology, right? And it will be processed out when we analyze it there. That's the whole idea there. Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole idea about the eight consciousness. Yeah, when we're done of this life, those energy that carry all of our karma, good karma, bad karma, that's stored within this eight consciousness. We move on to the next life. So they say that this is the last consciousness that leave our body, and the first consciousness is go into the mortal wombs. When we become the next human, whoever we are. But that's the whole idea there. That's why energy never lost. It can transform one form to others. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back here. Yeah, that's what the fifth skandha, the consciousness here. Yeah. Yeah, so conscious endures in this life and subsequently leave the body at death, passion to be incarnated in the next life form. The same. Okay, so let's move on then. Okay, karma here. Is Josh, please?
Yeah. Buddhism is founded on the understanding that all life in the universe is subject to moral causality, a process that makes present actions future consequences, both in this life and in the lives to come. This force is karma, a word meaning deeds, but also their consequence. Individuals' cumulative balance of punya, merit, whereas familiarity called good karma, and papa, demerit or bad karma. Buddhists regard all intentional acts of the body, speech, and mind as producing karmic consequences. Karma primarily determines the nature of every rebirth and death, ruling one's destiny until and unless one realizes nirvana.
It's easy, right? Easy concept. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard the different terms for good karma, bad karma.
Yeah. Mm.
I always hear pop is how they usually say the bad one instead of papa. It's like a lot of like words from all the Indian languages have like a on the end, but sometimes it's silent. So usually they say like pop, unless they're like probably, and then it's like papasa or something like that. Like bad deeds is pasta.
Yeah. Hi, Ethan. How you been, Ethan?
Chào thầy. Hi, I've been really busy with a lot. Sắp sửa move out nhà con. I'm like cleaning up all my stuff and packing up, ready to move down to Charleston for physician assistant school. So
Wow. So you want to be a PA, right?
Wow.
yeah, I.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
You look
I move in.
that's wonderful. We proud you.
Kind of.
Okay, so we talk about, especially in Buddhism, the thought, the intention is so important. Let's say while you're driving the car on the street on the freeway, so suddenly you hit the deer. Right? That the bad karma. What do you think?
Accident, like if you helped out
The accident different from hunting, right? Yeah, that's quite different. This is more heavy karma. Yeah. So probably most of us here, right, have hit some animal before, right? Right. Yeah, I almost hit a deer. Yeah. When they was driving on the freeway at night, it sat in the in the middle of the land. Yeah. You hit any?
This was all the way back in 2006, but I still think about it. There was a raccoon, but I hope it was just super fat and not pregnant, but it was either super fat or pregnant, and I hit it. I feel really bad even now, like 18, 17 years later. So think about it.
So again, if we don't have intention, of course there's some kind of karma, but much lesser when we go out to shoot them, to hunt them down. That's what Buddhism is different from others. Yeah, intention is so important. This is in daily life too, right? For the criminals, whether they have the intention or not, that will define, right, whether they're criminal or not, right? If they just hit accidentally, so much more, less severe than the intentional one. Yeah. Okay. Ivan, can you read, please?
What makes humans differ from one another is karma, the key factor accounting for the variations in people's physical traits, mental abilities, and character. For this reason, Buddhism is not a spiritual democracy, requiring the same religious practices of everyone. Some are suited for advanced meditation, while others are capable of comprehending only the most.
I'm sorry, I don't get. Uh, here, that's one.
Elementary moral instruction.
Yes.
The Buddhists have expressed and spiritual teaching, whereby fairness gifts giving is the foundation for Buddhism practice. An individual progress through the following 4 stages of jhana, selfless giving, with aims to diminish desire, and earn merit, morality, to avoid acquiring the merit, heaven, a goal of meritorious rebirth, and instruction on doctrine, especially that of the 4 noble truths.
Mm.
Not everyone progresses at their own pace and at their own level. It's an interesting thought that what we've done this life, as well as karma that has traveled with us, it takes our capacity in some way within levels of progression, but that aligns with the other teachings of single returner of our option, and that levels of progression of, okay, if you've done copious training on a full path, there are noble truths progress in levels with past and current responsibility.
Yeah. And that's why the basic understanding is that as Buddhists, we try our best to help others to create good karma, to minimize bad karma while we still living here. Yeah.
Well, in the Pali Canon, you see that the way the Buddha teaches is that certain common people who less educated get very simple instructions, and then he goes on later to give like the monks like a deeper instruction on the simple. So even the way the Buddha teaches, from the very simple person to which of course the most simplistic form is support the Sangha, right? That's how you create your man. But yeah, it's very much structured, or Buddha's teachings were very much structured from the very most simplistic to these higher levels.
So on the top, you say that we don't focus on spiritual democracy because everyone has different karma, right? So everyone has the different potential, different approaches, a different understanding of life. That's why depend on each individual, so we can understand some, how you say, the some teachings and practice differently. And that's why in Buddhist view, there's no problem for other people that they learn from different tradition, because that's what they like to learn. Yeah, so we don't have that kind of discrimination, we don't condemn them if they don't follow Buddhism, because that's what they know, right? Hey, you like to read this one? Yeah.
The Buddhist understanding of casualty is that not all contingencies in life are karma determined. The issue originally rose when skeptics questioned how it was that the Buddha himself, even though enlightened, suffered in old age and was injured when his enemy Devadatta attempted to assassinate him with a boulder. So only a short of it.
Yeah, you understand that it's not all the karma determined. What's mean?
Karma determined, so not everything has to do with karma.
It's a hard question, right? But somehow, in Buddhist view, everything tied out with it. This one is not only this life karma, but the past karma. Yeah. So you know Devadatta, right? So he followed the Buddha and tried to harm him in many past life. He had that type of bad affinity with him. Yeah, that's why he tried to assassinate or harm the Buddha. And also is here the story. You know the story why this sharp is injured from his foot. This is karma too. So it's say that Devadatta was the Buddha cousin. So one day he climbed up to the mountain and he dropped down a big boulder that he want to drop that boulder onto the Buddha so that he would kill him. But that boulder was split up, and one piece of rock hit his foot and injured his foot. That's all. Yeah. So again, even it's not the karma determined for this lifetime, but it's still related to the past karma too. Yeah. Yeah. And Stephen, you like to read the next one, please, in one text?
Yes. In one text, the Milandapanha questions of Menander, this issue is explained explicitly as an enlightened monk teaches that in life there are 8 causal contingencies that affect all beings. It is not all suffering that has its root in karma. There are 8 causes by which sufferings arise. The first 3 are wind, bile, and phlegm. In superabundance, the union of these humors, variations in temperature, the avoiding of dissimilarities, external agency, and karma. So what arises as the fruit of karma is much less than that which arises from other causes. No one without a Buddhist insight can fix the extent of the action of karma.
You understand this?
What's it talking about? Wind, bile, and phlegm.
I kind of half.
He's talking about just like stuff in the body that can cause diseases. That was the monk in that text understanding of how stuff in the body causes diseases and decay.
Yeah, we
And at
start
the same
several months, but because this is one-sided, right? In Theravada tradition, that's why I decided to shoot back here. It's more general. Yeah, that's good. How about the wind? The wind, the fire.
Well, I have heard that in Buddhism, when they discuss the elements like earth, wind, and fire, it's not in the way some people think of elements like, like uranium or platinum. It's like earth is like solid, air is like, gas, fire is like things that are having like a chemical change or like energy, and water is liquid stuff, of course.
Or that and my understanding also of it is earth is like the hardness quality. Wind, I can't remember what the wind quality.
Kind of like the energetic
flowing. Maybe that was it. The water element is everything has some sort of like moisture content or absence of moisture content, and then fire, everything has some sort of heat content. And so that, anything that arises in physical form has all of those qualities.
So anything that arises in physical form can suffer? Is that what?
No,
Yeah, it's
actually, affect us in one way and others.
Okay.
Let's say
Right.
yes, and
Yeah,
Stephen.
I think based on what Kirsten just said there, that kind of makes sense here. There's that one phrase I heard from another well-known Vietnamese Buddhist monk. He said pretty much all suffering that is happening, going on in the world is just pretty much we human beings created our own suffering. Like an example of the wind and the bio and all the fires and all the weather extremity that's happening. Yes, in a science will happen in that way, but at the same time, everything we human being are doing unintentionally are causing the earth to slowly, well, not necessarily slowly, it's actually degrading a little bit quicker than we want it to. And it's because of all the things that we are doing. We're wanting things more, and manufacturers gonna create more of the products we want, and all that manufacturing process in turn is causing pollution and global warming. And I think that's what I am understanding of like we human are causing suffering to ourselves. So, mofate.
In one particular sutra, Surama Sutra, the Buddha said that everything we have here is come from our own mind. About the moon, the Mars, the planet out there, do they relate with us?
What do you mean?
The moon?
Like the gravity, how it like pulls and pushes on the earth
Well,
and the water.
If the tides change with it,
Yes.
and we're
Yeah.
95% water, it's pretty naive to think that
Yeah.
our bodies aren't doing something.
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
there too.
A lot of hospitals, especially mental hospitals, like to keep more people on staff during the full moon because there is something strange that statistically, like a lot of people on the full moon get a little weird. A lot of people with mental illnesses get
Yeah.
worse,
When I
or
talk
dementia.
to students with disabilities, for sure, I had like way crazier issues, like behavior issues. Without a doubt.
When I've had some family members who had Alzheimer's and dementia, they were definitely worse on full moons.
Really? Yeah, when I was in school, I remember one scientist. Yeah, he proposed to destroy the moon so that we will have not any wave in the ocean. You know, because of the full moon, they have the wave. Yeah, a crazy idea. Yeah, they want to destroy. They want to, yeah, so that we won't have any wave, any to storm, hurricane. That's what his idea is about.
Great idea. I think that's-
They didn't. I know a different
Mm.
story in which they didn't want to destroy it, but in this story there was like people in the government in the Cold War in like the 50s or 60s who wanted to nuke the moon just to show the Soviets that they could. And I'm like, why would Russia care if we can nuke the moon or not? It's
Yeah.
the simplest, but it's the kind of stuff they were doing back then. They were setting off nukes all over the place.
Yeah. Well, like as a teenager, I always thought that it was everybody else's fault. You know, like everybody else needs to change, and the government's against me. My
Yeah.
teachers are against me. And when I learned about ego, and what we're talking about now, it's like I see my part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I would think about that all the time. I was actually just telling somebody about that. The same experience. Like when I was younger, you know, I would always try to blame other people or blame other factors like the government or I don't know, the weather or whatever. Or I'd always try to find like an excuse for something. But now, you know, like we're talking about like stuff that's karma, that's not our karma, that's not our fault. But honestly, I just, whatever happens to me, I just accept it. And I'm just like, you know, maybe this is my karma, maybe this is my current life karma, or maybe this is a past life karma, but either way, I know the master mentioned in some of the sutras, it says like the Buddha says, what you think is what your reality becomes. So even if something horrible happens to me, I'm just like, I accept that, that's fine. Either it's something that's my fault and I need to change, or it's not my fault, but still the best thing I can do is just try to keep doing the best I can and not blame anyone else.
Actually, go back to, you know, mass murder,
Yeah.
mass shooting. Some of them, they have the idea that they have to go out to shoot.
Well, yeah,
bad
like that
people.
guy at the bank.
Yeah.
he hated his coworkers. It's like instead of blaming your coworkers so much, you go berserk and kill them. Why don't you just like sit with yourself and find what your problem is instead of
That's
blaming
the
other
problem.
people?
Well, all form, and it takes a long time to really see it, all form itself is neutral. Anything that comes in form is going to change. Any level of suffering, discomfort, whatever, is your opinion, is your opinion on actually something that's neutral.
As teacher, especially you teach high school students, right? You instill this kind of idea. Don't blame on other people of mistake, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to versus extrinsic problem solving, they're always trying to externalize their issue on something else. Which is not too different, I think. Most adults. We are very quick to want to blame outside forces.
I think
We might have some kind of control,
isn't there like a specific, you guys might know this, like child developmental age that where they, like kids under a certain age, like they cannot process, I did that, it is my fault. That you can't ever expect a kid to do that because developmentally it will always be something that's outside of them. And I can't remember what age
Like
it
3 or
is.
something.
But
I
oh
don't,
no, I think it's even a little bit. I think
Maxwell's.
it's even a little bit older.
I don't know the age, but we used to call it the age of accountability.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden there's like a switch where then the kid and I think it goes back to that like self-referential ability.
Yeah.
that
So
they have.
with your level, like Kaylee, your student level, right? You can teach them how to be liability, right? Do they recognize that? No. They recognize that they have to take their own responsibility.
Who's responsible for you, and you have to admit, me, I'm responsible, then why is your hand on him? You put your hand on. And they, some of them do try it, like, my actions are because of someone else's actions, and say, that's not how it works. But most of them understand, like, my actions are my actions, no matter what someone else does, my actions.
Yeah.
From me.
But I wonder why the adults still blame on others when they make a mistake. They still point the finger to others.
ego jumps in. It's never say, I did that.
Not easy.
You did that.
Especially when you have constant, most of the time people will say, no, you do it, not me. Right? It's not easy.
Some people really convince themselves that they're always the victim. And I think one reason they do that is because they don't want to be responsible, and they would rather just keep blaming other people forever. So they create this scenario in their mind where they're just like this poor person who's always suffering because everyone else is evil. And I'm like,
Well, that's a lot of prior conditioning.
Yeah.
Too. Like, so if you grew up seeing your mom always like super upset because dad was drinking or in a bad mood all the time, that you kind of get conditioned to believe that
but it's like it always comes back to this simple advice, basically what Kelly was saying, like you know, who's responsible for you? You can only control yourself. You can't control other people. So even if other people are the problem, what are you going to do about it? You're not going to kill them, hopefully. So you have to change yourself.
That was by the motto of whatever someone believes or says about me is none of my business.
Yeah, true.
Yes. So Ethan, as a PA, right? Right, you need to have that kind of training, right? When you provide the treatment to the patient, right? Ethan, you follow?
Yeah, I'm following. I really listen along to everybody in regards to like self accountability. And I know I actually had this conversation the other day with another PA where, you know, we always try to do our best to give advice and or the, you know, best medical advice and guide them, but it is ultimately up to that individual or that person to, you know, take action. A lot of patients have they come from a lot of unfortunate events happens to them, or like an injury, or like they get diagnosed with a certain thing that causes them pain or whatever. And some people, they do look inward and they tell themselves, okay, well, even though this is happening, you know, I'm still, even though I'm not responsible, like even though this just happened, I'm still responsible for my own healing, or I'm still responsible for my own journey. Other people aren't. They're so stuck in, you know, their own pain and sorrow or whatever is holding them back from, you know, listening to our medical advice, that they continue to not stay well, and they keep seeing us over and over, but they don't change. So it reminds me of, like, to tie it all up, it reminds me of a quote of you know, it's not fair that something were to happen to you, whether it's like some sort of like injustice, but you are, at the end of the day, you are ultimately still responsible for your own healing.
This is that influenced by Western religion too, right? So in Christianity, right? So people just believe, oh, God will take care of everything, don't worry. Right. But in Buddhism, the opposite way, you have to be responsible. Right. So that the big challenge.
Some of what Ethan was saying reminded me, and some of what you were asking reminded me of like where he's talking about like the bile and phlegm and stuff. And I was thinking about how it relates to, you know, karma. That's not necessarily our fault, definitely not in this life. And then there's karma that is our fault. I was thinking about like when it comes to like diseases, like I had a friend who was my age who died of like a super weird bad kind of Parkinson's, like worse than regular Parkinson's. He was, and that's genetic, you're born with it. So if it was his karma, it certainly wasn't his current life karma, but maybe it was like, you know, the monk said, like some of the bodily stuff is not even your karma. But then there's other stuff, you know, like sometimes I run out of breath, and it's not a mystery to me why. It's because I smoked for like 16 years. So, you know, or like you know, I know a lot of people, like I work in the medical field, and I see like a million medical records a day. And you know, there's people who have like the random diseases, yeah. But there's a ton of people who, you know, like half of their medical records is their doctor telling them to quit eating this, quit smoking that, quit drinking that, do more exercise. And like, you know, you look months later, they see the same doctor, and the doctor's like, they didn't do anything I said, so they're still getting worse. Blah blah blah, you know.
So Bob, so your addition, so sometimes your customer call you to fix something at their house, but later on after they pay, but they could not do it, they blame on you, right? Sometimes, right? How could you solve that? Is that through insurance, or you have to go back and fix for them?
Depends on the situation.
People don't take care of themselves, but they blame on you, right?
Right. Yeah, or you're talking about like if the job gets messed up or something like that. Or if they call me, yeah, usually they'll just have to come back and, you know, fix it up if I'm, you know, trying to find if you do something bad, can you break this on?
Yeah. So again, it's not easy, right? It's not easy for people to accept their own fault. To have that type of accountability, right? To be like be responsible for their own karma.
What the Buddha teaches, the 8 vicissitudes. So you're gonna have all of these. You just guarantee you're gonna have all of these Your job is to know how to ride them out. Praise and blame, because that's actually really the same thing. Fame and disrepute, right? It's actually one thing. Gain and loss, and
That's all the ones I remember.
praise and blame, gain and loss, fame, pleasure and pain.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
So you-
Hmm. But not easy, right? It's not easy to accept our responsibility when I have seen. I read many stories about car accident, right? Whether they are fault or not, they keep blame on the other party. Right. Anyway, so it's not easy. Not easy until we recognize, we are mindful with our thought, with our action, with our speech. Not easy. That's why as a role teacher, right, we need to teach them at a young age. From the elementary level up to the high school level until they arrive from high school. That's why I enjoy to teach my college student than the high school one, because if they enjoy my class, they can sign up and study, and if they follow, they have good grade. Otherwise, that's their choice. But high school student or elementary or middle school, you have to babysit them, right? Basically, right? It's not easy. You have to guide them. So at Catholic school, do they have a type of ethical course to teach them of this type of thing?
Yeah,
They do.
at least most of the private schools they'll have some kind of ethical or morality course at some point at school, right? And they have something each year.
Yeah. And that's why the wealthy parents, they defer to send them to the private school, right? Like Catholic, Christian, and so forth, right?
Various reasons, I think. Some for the academics.
Sports.
Yeah. So clearly in the public school, they never provide that kind of ethical, moral course for student, right?
There's like stuff that goes around, like, your card that you did forever. There was like,
PDIS.
yeah, or like, pride.
Yeah,
Or it's like, yeah, it's like acronyms of like responsible.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember any of them.
It works super well.
Efficient with your time, so things about being responsible for oneself. There's that sort of thing in some of the schools sometimes, but really it just falls to me to just create life lessons when they pop up and model what I teach, and when I make mistakes, say, oh, I'm sorry. Be an example.
Yeah, so George, you go from school to teach them or to guide them how to change from high school, right, into college environment, right? From the dependent on their parents to the independent state of mind, right? Is that a bit different?
Yeah, it's a bit different. I think kind of what we were talking about earlier, a lot of my freshmen this year came to the like real weird awakening when they got to college that like in high school teachers will nag you about turning your stuff in and make sure you're like, and a lot of things are done for you just because it makes the teachers and the staff and school job easier. And when they get to college, they're just like, oh, well, I didn't do that. Why not? Somebody would do it. No, that's not the way to roll. You have to teach them that they have to cover all this up. That's the same transition from yes, it's exactly the same. Like every time you make one of those big steps into a new school, it's definitely and so there's a lot of that's kind of why I like my job is I'm more of a mentor to people than I am like teaching. I mean, I still teach like real curriculum, But at the same time, like I'm teaching a lot more of the morality and ethics now because it's interpersonal. Like I've seen this kid for 7 years now. We have a relationship, and it's easier for me to talk. But
yeah, that's a problem of with the freshman student in college. They have a kind of transitional periods between depending on the parents completely to the period that they have to be responsible for their work, for their study, and so forth. And some of them they couldn't handle that for the freshman, even the sophomore year. But later on, after they get used to that, they could handle, they could learn how to handle. That's why it's easy for me to teach these the junior and the senior. Most of the time, they more mature. Yeah, they're more mature than the younger one to recognize. Okay, so that's all for us today. All right, so thank you. Yeah, yeah, thank you, and still.